You are an extension of source energy. And that inner being is pure positive energy. It is joy. It is clarity. It is wellness. And as you are reaching more and more for thoughts that feel good little by little, then you allow more and more who you really are. When you are born, you are much more allowing than you are 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 years later. Because it seems that the longer you bang around with each other, the more you find those things you don't want, which could be a very good thing in a creative environment where you are letting the contrast help you to define what you do want. But if you become one, and many physical humans are, who believe that you will get to where you want to be by pushing against that which you do not want, then your resistance increases as time goes by and your life becomes less joyful as time goes by. Now you can turn that around at any moment. It doesn't happen instantly, but you can begin the trend in a different direction when you finally say, nothing is more important than that I feel good, because when I feel good, I'm allowing the fullness of who I am. When I feel good, all that I am, the God source that flows through me and to me, functions through my physical apparatus. In other words, that's why I'm clearer. That's why I'm more stable. That's why my body thrives. That's why those who are around me are uplifted. That's why I am attractive. In other words, when you give your attention to things that cause you to connect fully with who you are magnificently joyous, magnificently thriving being. So, when you think about the dominant subjects in your life, there are many of them that you have come to habitual thoughts about. Sometimes you call those thoughts beliefs. A belief is just a thought that you keep thinking. It's a habit of thought. And sometimes you even call them core beliefs, which sounds very important and unchanging. We would like to call them beliefs. We would like to call them thoughts. We might even go so far as to call them dominant thoughts, meaning thoughts that you usually think. So when you think about these thoughts that you usually think, and you think about the subject of dollars, do dollars feel to you like adventure and fun? Or does the subject of dollars feel to you like hard work and struggle? When you think about dollars, do you feel free or do you feel worried? You can tell. You can tell where you have practiced most. When you think about your physical body, do you feel sure-footed? Do you feel happy when you think about your body? Or when you think about your body, do you feel disappointed or do you feel tentative? Do you feel uncertain? Do you worry about your body or do you feel pleasure when you think about your body? You can tell what you've practiced most. It's true of all subjects. Your dominant relationship, does it feel like a vacation or does it feel like hard work? Does it feel like expansion or does it feel bound and tight? You can tell by the way you feel when you approach the subject what you've been practicing. And the reason that any of those tendencies have become dominant tendencies is because you have, usually without even being aware of the process, activated those thoughts more often. And the way you activate a thought is just by turning your attention to it. In other words, whatever you are giving your attention to is activated. So you say, all right, Abraham, I'm getting the hang of this, so I've been thinking about this and I don't feel good when I think about it, so I'm going to deactivate this thought. And we say, good luck on that, because you actually cannot deactivate a thought. You can think another thought, which will activate it instead, but you cannot deactivate a thought, because the more you think about the thought that you don't want to think, the more you activate the thought that you don't want to think, and the more in vibrational harmony with it you become. So the way you deactivate a thought is by activating other thoughts. And we would encourage that you deliberately activate other thoughts with the singular intent of feeling good when you do it. Because if you do it for any reason other than to feel good while you do it, the tendency will be to take some issue and try to fix it. So we've been offering a process that we are calling virtual reality. And the whole point of virtual reality is you're wanting to show yourself that you can choose a thought and you can focus upon the thought and you can generate vibrational response to the thought. In other words, you want to show yourself that you can deliberately activate thought within you. And the reason that that is so valuable is that most of you don't realize that you are doing it. So most of you don't realize that you can do it. In fact, most of our physical friends are letting the thoughts be activated by others around them, by what the news produces or projects, or by what's happening even with your parents when you were very small. It is not an uncommon thing to find someone today who, through the contrast that they've been living, has a very pointed, very clear, very personal, very wonderful desire focused within them. But the airtime that they give to the subject is more about the absence of their desire than it is about their desire. And the reason that they do that is because they learned their habit of thought relative to dollars, or relative to wellness, or relative to their body, or relative to relationships. They learned it long, long before their personal desire was even hatched. So their personal desire didn't actually even stand a chance because their habit of thought had already been established before it was even born. In other words, here's this bright young thing, goes off to college, meets someone who is sure that abundance is the way that life will be, and is aggravated to want more than he has ever wanted before. But every time he even lets himself hope for a better life, the habit of thought that he learned from his parents activates instead and holds him in a place different than he wants to be. So then he develops theories about why he cannot get to where he wants to be. He suggests that he was not born into the right place, or he suggests that there is prejudice against those like him, or he suggests, when he is very far-reaching, that he was bad in a past life. He suggests that there are all kinds of things because surely it cannot be due to him because he's giving it all of the effort that anyone could give it. In fact, he's giving it more effort than the one who is succeeding. So he cannot make heads or tails. Why can he not find the success that he is working so hard to find, and that in his heart he believes that he deserves? What is standing in his way? And it is amazing the stories you come up with to explain that. And we say, it is for only one reason. When he was a very young lad, he lived in an environment where they did not believe that abundance was possible or that abundance was appropriate. And he learned by listening to those who surrounded him a pattern of thought that he still thinks today. He still has a pattern of vibration within him that opposes his now newly hatched desire, and he cannot get to where he wants to go because his habit of thought is dominant. So as Esther hears so many of you as she is listening back to recordings, and even as she watches her own experience, as she realizes that there are now fresh new desires being born that are hindered by old stale thoughts that have been regurgitated over and over again, she gets all revved up and thumps on the desk one day and says, I can damn well choose what vibration is dominant within me. And we said we had hoped you would feel more positive about it than that, but that's a good step one. Desire is a very good thing. And we are knowing that once a desire like that has formed within you, that you are then more likely to be willing to reach for thoughts that feel good. And so that's what virtual reality is. Virtual reality is a process where you pretend like you're a movie director, you pick a place that you think you would feel good when you get there, and you imagine going there. And you describe what it's like when you get there. You pick a beautiful scene, outdoors or indoors. You pick the time of year, you pick the time of day, you describe what the sun is like in the sky, you describe what the air feels like on your skin, you describe the way you are dressed, and most importantly, after these descriptions have been laid out, you describe the emotion or the mood that has been bubbling forth within you. And then you speak a few words to describe how good you feel, and then you leave the scene. The whole game is to get in, feel good, get out. The value of the game is that if you will play it for a few months, you will show yourself that you have the ability to focus into vibrational arenas that will allow the energy of well-being to flow through you. Sometimes, as we see our physical beings play the game, they go to this good-feeling place, and then they bring someone that they have an issue with in, thinking that this good-feeling place will fix something that is broken. And we say, It could, but it usually doesn't. What usually happens is what is broken breaks the virtual reality. In other words, usually the pattern of thought that you've already been thinking is so dominant that when you bring it in, it dominates wherever you are. So you just bring reality to virtual reality and mess up virtual reality. So what we are wanting you to begin to do as you play on your own with this game of virtual reality is use it as an exercise where you prove to yourself first that you can feel good just because you want to. And next, that you use to feel good. Our physical friends say, okay, Abraham, I'll play your silly game, but what's it going to get me? I will play virtual reality so that I can get the things I want. And we say, if you go there too soon, you will mess up the power of virtual reality, because in the moment that you introduce an unfulfilled desire to virtual reality is less pure than it was before you introduced the unfulfilled desire. And we want you to use virtual reality as this place where you purify vibration, as this place where you resonate with source, as this place where you let the junction of source and flesh be this pure connection. We want you to use virtual reality as this place where you show yourself that you can vibrate where you want to vibrate just because you choose to vibrate there. In other words, not a place to fix anything, a place to practice the pure vibration. Because what happens when you begin to do that is who you really are begins to more often come to the surface. So every time you do it, it's more likely that you will be able to do it more easily next time. And every time you do it, and are consciously aware that you are doing it, you are holding yourself in the place of allowing. Now, how does that fit into this scheme of deliberate creating? Step 1 says you ask. You do it all the time. You can't stop it. Step 2 is not your work. Source answers. Step 3 is your work. You must be in the receiving mode of what you're asking for. Virtual reality is a really good place to get into step 3. Because when you are basking in the beauty of something that you've conjured in your own mind, there is no resistance within you, especially when you get good at it. Of course, meditation is the ultimate deactivation of a thought, isn't it? Because when you quiet your mind, you stop any vibration that might be resistant in nature. That's why meditation is so often encouraged. When you meditate, you quiet your mind. When you quiet your mind, you stop all negative thought. When you stop the negative thought, you allow the vibration that is you to raise to meet the source that is you. But in meditation, you're not focused upon that which you desire. And so in meditation, you are in this place of absolute allowing, not trying to make anything happen. And that really is what creating is. Creating is understanding that step 1 and step 3 are both important steps, but they are separate steps. So the perfect creation is like the perfect dance. You use one foot and then the other, and then one foot and then the other. It wouldn't be a very good dance if you were hopping around on one foot. And deliberate creation is the same way. There is step 1, there is step 2, but don't worry about it, it's not your work. There is step 3. So you let the contrast inspire you to the desire. It's going to happen without your consciously getting involved. And then you spend your every waking moment playing as many different games as you can play that hold you in the place of allowing what you've been asking for. So through the years, those of you who've been listening to us for a while have heard a plethora of games or processes. And every one of them has been pointed toward helping you find, for this moment of the game, alignment with who you are by no longer, at least for the time of the game, pushing against or disallowing or vibrationally hooking up with the absence of something that you want. So we began by describing a book of positive aspects where you get a new book, you put something that is important to you at the top of a page, and then you just sit and write positive aspects about that. Very good process, except sometimes you took the issue that was bothering you most, and as you tried to make your list of positive aspects, every time you wrote a positive aspect, you felt a negative one. So the book of positive aspects was helpful if you didn't have any big issues. But on the things that really mattered, it didn't help you very much, because all it did was cause you to activate something right where you'd practiced it for the last 20 years.